Hello students, in this lecture we are going to see about कभी इंजरी हुई है आप लोगों को? Have you ever had an injury? कभी गिरे हो साइकिल चलाते हुए, गाड़ी चलाते हुए, alright, while running, while sports? जैसे ही इंजरी होती है, it starts bleeding. Your knees, your elbows are the prone points where we fall, okay, and an injury happens. Or while we are using the knife, एक कट लग गया, वो कट से इमीडिएटली ब्लड आना चालू हो जाता है. क्या आता है कट से? Immediately the blood starts coming. I am sure you all have experienced it, okay? So the blood which starts coming, थोड़े ही टाइम में ये ब्लीडिंग बंद हो जाती है. थोड़े ही टाइम में ये ब्लीडिंग बंद हो जाती है. And you experience a dark pink line over here. Alright, जो इंजरी, जो कट मार्क रहता है, वो डार्क पिंकिश कलर का हो जाता है and the blood stops. It stops bleeding. The blood stops coming out. Alright? So ये कैसे होता है? How is the bleeding stopping by itself? How the body is preventing blood loss after an injury? Blood being one of the most important components of the body. Alright? RBCs का loss हम बिल्कुल bear नहीं कर सकते because they are the principal cells which are taking the oxygen and circulating it through to all the organs. We say brain is the most important one, but it is the RBCs who are taking the oxygen to the brain and helping them to function. Okay, RBCs का excessive loss we cannot bear at all, and the body also is taking care of itself. जैसे ही bleeding होती है means RBCs, WBCs, the platelets are going out. Blood loss हो रहा है. Blood loss जब हो रहा है, the plasma along with the formed elements. Now you know the composition of blood. Plasma along with the formed elements is starting flowing out. So the body is also going to take care. It is going to form a barrier so that the bleeding stops, so that the loss of RBCs, WBCs, platelets from the body should stop. All right. So let us see how it does. And this process of what the body is doing is called coagulation of blood. Coagulation of blood or clotting of blood means एक liquid blood से एक semi solid jelly like clot बन जाता है. That is called clotting of blood or coagulation of blood. Alright, so the process of conversion, देखो ध्यान से, process of conversion of liquid blood into a solid or a semi-solid form is clotting or coagulation. In simple terms, जो liquid बाहर आ रहा है, उसको stop करने के लिए, उसको clot करने के लिए यहाँ पे एक clot बन जाएगा, which will act as a stoppage, which will act as a barrier और बाकी का blood vessel से बाहर नहीं आ पाएगा because now this semi solid thing has formed. Alright, so process of conversion of liquid blood into a solid or a semi solid mass is clotting or coagulation of blood. Usually it takes around 2 to 8 minutes for the bleeding to stop. That means for the clot to form, it takes on an average around 2 to 8 minutes in healthy individuals. So clotting time 2 minutes में भी blood bleeding रुक सकती है and it can range till 8 minutes. It's going to depend कि कितनी बड़ी injury है, cut कितना बड़ा है, okay, and कहाँ पे हुई है ये injury and your other factors which are responsible for clotting. So the body should not be deficient in those factors. So the bleeding is going to get controlled, get arrested within 2 to 8 minutes. And this process is called hemostasis. Hemostasis is the stoppage of bleeding or is the stoppage of loss of blood from the body after an injury. The body itself is doing this hemostasis. It's a physiologic process. Physiologic means body खुद से कर रही है. It's a physiological process. Alright, so hemostasis is a physiologic process. आप लोग लिखोगे यहाँ पे. Body is doing it itself. It is maintaining, it is preventing blood loss after an injury by the process of coagulation, which is also called now hemostasis will be the physiological procedure by which the body is stopping its blood loss after an injury. Now when an injury happens, जब चोट लगती है, okay, when an injury happens, चोट बाहर के टिश्यू को भी लगती है and अंदर के ब्लड को भी लगती है. Means the tissue is also damaged and the blood inside the blood vessel is also damaged. So there is going to be two types of damage when any injury is there. So the damage which is outside to the tissue is called extrinsic damage. and the damage which is inside is called intrinsic damage. Damage which is outside is called extrinsic, damage which is inside is called intrinsic. And both these extrinsic and intrinsic damages जो होते हैं, ये दोनों से कुछ कुछ reactions चालू होंगे from both the extrinsic as well as the intrinsic. Some cascade of reactions are going to start. Cascade of reactions means एक के पीछे एक reactions होंगे immediately for the bleeding to get arrested and a clot to be formed within this time range. So immediately when there is an injury, damage होगा tissue को, damage होगा blood को, and now we will see कि tissue से क्या activate होगा, blood में क्या activate होगा, and these cascade of reactions will start. एक के बाद एक enzymatic reaction start हो जाएंगे, which are going to help in the formation of a blood clot and the arrest of bleeding. Alright, now we had seen कि platelets जो हैं वो mainly responsible होते हैं clotting of blood के लिए. Platelets के function में हमने देखा था platelets are the major cells which help in the clotting of blood, and the platelet is having clotting factors. There are clotting factors in the blood. Clotting factors. So there are 13 clotting factors. 1 to 13. They are written in Roman numbers. So 13 clotting factors present रहते हैं blood में. Mainly the platelets are going to help in the activation of these clotting factors, and they are going to help in the formation of a blood clot. So see the diagram over here. ये एक normal blood vessel है जिसको injury हो गई है. यहाँ पे cut आया है. This is the cut to the tissue over here. So the blood vessel is also cut. Outside tissue will also be cut. When the blood is cut, alright, the endothelium, that is the lining of the blood vessel, is exposed. Endothelium exposed हो गया, वो site of injury पे. The collagen is exposed. The platelets and the blood which is coming out, okay, blood is flowing out, which is oozing out. The red blood cells, platelets, they are coming out. जैसे ही injury हुई, cut हुआ, endothelium exposed हुआ, collagen exposed हुआ, platelets are going to come and aggregate over here. Platelets आके aggregate हो जाएंगे at the site of injury. They will also cause थोड़ा सा vasoconstriction. जिस एरिया में इंजरी हुई है वहाँ का blood vessel थोड़ा सा constrict हो जाएगा, vasoconstriction होगा, so that blood बाहर जो flow हो रहा है वो कम हो सके, तो amount कम हो सके, okay? And platelets are going to come and aggregate over here. These platelets we will see are going to produce an enzyme. ये एक enzyme produce करेंगे, which is further going to help in the formation of fibrin, okay, which is further going to help in the formation of fibrin from fibrinogen. So fibrinogen, which is fibrinogen से fibrin बनेगा. Now if you remember, I have told you that fibrinogen is also present in plasma along with globulin, albumin जो हमने proteins देखे थे, okay? Fibrinogen is also a protein which is present in the plasma, but it is present in an inactive form. So these platelets are going to release something which is going to get this fibrinogen activated. Fibrinogen को active करेंगे and then fibrinogen is converted into fibrin. This fibrin is actually the polymer. पहले इसका monomer बनेगा. फाइब्रिन मोनोमर बनेगा पहले and then उसका पॉलीमर बनेगा. So this fibrin polymer is actually these threads, mesh-like threads, in which the blood vessels, the blood cells are clogged. And this is formed at the site of injury. Because this is formed now, no more blood can flow out. See this, the clot is formed. And you see at the site of injury, the clot is formed. The fibrin threads have entangled the blood cells, the formed elements of blood, the cellular elements of blood. And no more blood can go out of the blood vessel now because a tight clot is formed over there. It's not going to let any other blood flow outside. So let's see the process now. You've understood this in short. Okay, you've understood what is happening. Let us see the actual process. Now let us see the process. हमने short में देख लिया है क्या होता है. We have understood what is happening. So now see, when there is injury to the blood vessel, when there is any injury to the body, when there is injury, दो जगहों पर ये injury का effect होगा. The damage will be to the tissue, that is from the outside, extrinsic, and the damage will be to the blood, that is intrinsic. So this is extrinsic, this is intrinsic. Alright, this injured tissue is going to release thromboplastin. ये injured tissue is going to release thromboplastin. ये जो blood के platelets affect हुए हैं, okay, जैसे ही injury हुई platelets activate हो जाते हैं, because platelets are having the majority of the clotting factors and the enzymes. So platelets also aggregate, they come and aggregate at the site of injury. Platelets आके aggregate हो जाते हैं and they also release thromboplastin or thrombokinase. You can write it down over here, thrombokinase or thromboplastin. This thromboplastin or thrombokinase, in turn, it produces prothrombinase. It activates the enzyme prothrombinase in the presence of calcium. Calcium is one of the essential requirements for clotting of blood. अब correlate करो, calcium और कहाँ पे essential है? There are two very important processes in the body जिसके लिए calcium important है. One is blood clotting. Second is muscle contraction. Do you remember the muscle contraction theory? Calcium is playing an important role over there. So important MCQ. Calcium is responsible for two important processes in the body. One is clotting of blood and the second is contraction of the muscle. So this prothrombinase, now ये जो thromboplastin है इन दोनों से बनता है, ये दोनों activate करते हैं, release करते हैं enzyme prothrombinase in the blood. This prothrombinase is the activator for prothrombin. This prothrombinase helps in the conversion of prothrombin, which is present in the blood in an inactive form. Prothrombin को convert करता है active thrombin में. Prothrombin convert होता है thrombin में, which is the active form. This prothrombinase is acting on heparin. Okay, heparin पे काम करता है. Heparin does not let the blood to clot. It is a natural anticoagulant which is present in the blood. All right. Heparin is the natural anticoagulant which is present in the blood. It does not let the blood to clot, but at the site of injury clot बनाना है so that loss रुके. Okay. So ये heparin को inactivate करेगा and prothrombin से active thrombin बनाएगा. Prothrombin, which is in an active form, gets converted into thrombin. This thrombin in turn is responsible. This thrombin in turn is responsible or is essential to convert the fibrinogen, which is again the inactive form. Fibrinogen is present in the plasma, but it is in an inactive form. Injury होने पर ये सबका काम होगा. If there is no injury, इन सबका कुछ काम नहीं है. So active thrombin is going to inactivate the fibrinogen which is present in the inactive form. It is going to convert the fibrinogen to fibrin. This fibrinogen is getting converted into fibrin over here. Fibrinogen is a soluble protein. So ये soluble protein से ये fibrin बनेगा which is active form and which is insoluble. So initially fibrin monomers बनेंगे and then they are stabilized and polymers are formed, which are the actual thread-like structures. ये जो आप देख रहे हो एक mesh बन जाएगा. These are the fibrin threads which will be enclosing all the blood cells, the platelets, the WBCs, the RBCs. So this is how the clot is formed. So dead RBCs and the WBCs and the platelets enclosed in a mesh of fibrin like this is called a clot. Clot will be a structure which will have the fibrin threads as well as the dead RBCs, WBCs and the platelets. That is the form elements of blood. सो सी अगेन, टिश्यू इंजरी होने पे या कोई भी चोट लगने पे दो टाइप से अफेक्ट होगा। एक तो डैमेज होगा एक्सटर्नल टिश्यू को, दूसरा डैमेज होगा अंदर से ब्लड को। सो एक्सटर्नल टिश्यू डैमेज होने पे इट इज गोइंग टू रिलीज थ्रोम्बोप्लास्टिन। जब ब्लड में इंजरी होगी, ओके, व्हेन द एंडोथेलियम इज एक्सपोज्ड, द प्लेटलेट्स आर गोइंग टू कोएगुलेट एंड प्लेटलेट्स आर गोइंग टू डिसइंटीग्रेट and release, they disintegrate and release thromboplastin at the site of injury. At the site of injury, they are going to release. Okay, this thromboplastin is going to activate or is going to produce prothrombinase enzyme, which is required to convert the inactive prothrombin to active thrombin form. प्रोथ्रोम्बिन विच इज प्रेजेंट इन एन इनएक्टिव फॉर्म, उसको एक्टिवेट करने के लिए प्रोथ्रोम्बिनेज लगता है। एंड देन यू हैव एक्टिव थ्रोम्बिन। दिस इज गोइंग टू वर्क अगेंस्ट हेपारिन विच इज द नेचुरल एंटीकोएगुलेंट। ओके, सो इट इज गोइंग टू वर्क अगेंस्ट हेपारिन, does not let the blood to clot, but यहाँ पे clotting करना है, so it's going to act against heparin over here, okay, and active thrombin is formed. This thrombin in turn is responsible or is required to convert fibrinogen which is in an inactive form to fibrin that is the active form. पहले फाइब्रिन के मोनोमर्स बनेंगे, फाइब्रिन विल बी इनसोल्यूबल in the blood, इसके monomers बनेंगे and gradually it is going to settle and these polymers are formed which will be long thread-like structures. All this process is going to take around 2 to 8 minutes, averaging around 2 to 8 minutes. Okay. I want to write it down in 3 steps. If I want to write it down in only 3 sentences, the process of blood clotting. Of course, इसमें बहुत सारे clotting factors भी involved हैं. This is just a short chart which is for you to study. When you go to your medical college, you will be seeing this in detail, where all the clotting factors का role, कहाँ पे कौन सा clotting factor involved है, that you will get. Okay, so this is just in short which you need to know about the clotting of blood. Of course, it's a cascade of reactions. Many clotting factors are going to act over here, which we are not seeing. There are 13 clotting factors, I told you. If I want to write it in 3 sentences, my first step will be the formation of prothrombinase. मेरा फर्स्ट स्टेप रहेगा फॉर्मेशन ऑफ प्रोथ्रोम्बिनेज, दिस विल बी द फर्स्ट स्टेप, और फॉर्मेशन ऑफ प्रोथ्रोम्बिन एक्टिवेटर मींस प्रोथ्रोम्बिन को एक्टिवेट करने वाली कोई चीज पहले बनानी है। ओके, सेकेंड स्टेप विल बी कन्वर्जन ऑफ प्रोथ्रोम्बिन टू थ्रोम्बिन। नाउ आई वांट एक्टिव थ्रोम्बिन, सो प्रोथ्रोम्बिन कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा थ्रोम्बिन में, एंड द थर्ड स्टेप विल बी कन्वर्जन ऑफ फाइब्रिनोजेन to fibrin. If I want to summarize the coagulation of blood in only 3 steps, my first step will be the formation of prothrombinase or the formation of prothrombin activator. लिखो आपके पास first step. ये first step में prothrombinase कहाँ से बना? You will write extrinsic pathway से यहाँ से बना, injured tissue से, intrinsic pathway से blood के platelets से बना. The second step will be the conversion of prothrombin to active thrombin, जिसके लिए ये prothrombinase required है. So the prothrombinase which is formed is going to convert the prothrombin which is in an inactive form to active thrombin. The third step will be the conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin, again for which this thrombin is required. तो ये जो एक्टिव थ्रोम्बिन, हमने थ्रोम्बिन को एक्टिव क्यों किया? बिकॉज फिब्रिनोजेन जो इनएक्टिव फॉर्म में है उसके अगर फाइब्रिन बनाना है, ये क्लॉट बनाना है, तो थ्रोम्बिन चाहिए, तो थ्रोम्बिन चाहिए। थ्रोम्बिन कहाँ से आया? थ्रोम्बिन प्रोथ्रोम्बिन से आया, बट इसके लिए अगेन ये एंजाइम चाहिए। तो प्रोथ्रोम्बिनेज इज द प्रोथ्रोम्बिन एक्टिवेटर, prothrombinase enzyme is the prothrombin activator. It is going to active this inactive protein को convert करेगा active thrombin में, and then fibrinogen is converted into fibrin. So these will be the 3 steps if I want to write it down in 3 steps. So you get it in your MCQs, which is the first step, which is the second step, which is the third step. First step will be formation of the prothrombin activator or formation of prothrombinase. Second will be the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, and third will be the conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. And the clot will be a meshwork of these fibrin threads, okay, of these fibrin polymer and the dead RBCs, WBCs, and the platelets entangled in it, which is going to stop the further bleeding, further loss of blood from the body. The process is called hemostasis. It's a physiological procedure. Body is taking care of itself that no blood loss or no more blood loss should happen at the site of injury. Let's see what are the clotting factors that are present. We have discussed that there are 13 clotting factors which are present. Okay, 1, 3, 13, and they are denoted in Roman numericals. So let us see the 13 clotting factors. You need not remember all of them, but जो हमने हमारी चार्ट में मेंशन किए हैं in our coagulation of blood, वो वाले कौन से factors हैं, you will have to remember. Okay. So factor number 1 is fibrinogen. We have mentioned this in our chart. It is factor 1. It is clotting factor 1. You will have to remember. Factor 2 is prothrombin. This is also mentioned in our chart. So अब आप लोग क्या करो, in your chart just go on mentioning. Fibrinogen जहाँ पे है, एक अलग कलर का पेन लेके उसको 1 लिखो, Roman 1, so that you remember the first clotting factor. Second is prothrombin. Third is thromboplastin. We have discussed all these in our chart. Okay, so ये आपको पता होने चाहिए. Thromboplastin is the third clotting factor. Fourth is calcium ions. We have discussed these also. Fifth is labile factor. Sixth is not yet discovered. Seventh is stable factor. Eighth is anti-hemophilic factor. 9 is Christmas factor or plasma thromboplastin component. 10th is Trot power factor. 11th is plasma thromboplastin antecedent. 12th is Hageman factor. These names are after their discoverers. Okay. 12th is 12th is Hageman factor and 13th is fibrin stabilizing factor. वो जो insoluble जो fibrin monomers बनते हैं वो stable होके polymers बनते हैं, तो वो stabilize होता है clot. So fibrin stabilizing factor. Alright. Now what is this anti-hemophilic factor? Hemophilia is a disease where after an injury blood clotting नहीं होता है. There is excessive loss of blood from the body. Clotting जो 2 to 8 minutes में we have seen that does not take place in hemophilia. So hemophilia is a disease of deficiency of clotting factors in the blood. कैसे detect होता है? When a child is small, okay, when a child is small, crawling करता है, चलता है, बहुत बार गिरता है, okay, जब knees पे, elbows पे लगता है, bleeding चालू होती है, but जैसे नॉर्मल बेबीज में एक डार्क पिंक कलर का बन जाता है, क्लॉट बन जाता है, ब्लीडिंग स्टॉप होती है, वो नहीं होता है इन बेबीज में. द ब्लीडिंग इज कंटिन्यूअस. दैट इज हाउ हीमोफीलिया डिटेक्ट होता है. इट इज ड्यू टू डेफिशिएंसी ऑफ दीज क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर्स, दैट इज फैक्टर 8 एंड फैक्टर 9. Factor 9 also causes hemophilia. Factor 8 also causes hemophilia. These are clotting factors which cause hemophilia. Hemophilia is a disease when clotting does not take place normally, and it does not take place normally because of the deficiency of clotting factors in the blood. It does not take place normally because of the deficiency of clotting factors in the blood. So you will have to remember hemophilia is a clotting disorder. Okay, it's a disease when the clotting is not taking in the normal physiologic way. This is all what is required of you to know about the coagulation of blood. Okay, and vitamin K is also important. आपके MCQs में कभी-कभी आता है calcium and उसके साथ कौन सा vitamin is important. We will not go into the details where vitamin K is acting, but vitamin K is also essential or is an important component in blood clotting. So I hope you have understood. Just go back to the lecture, just make the chart with you and understand the chart. Okay, understand the process. We have seen the steps. Step by step, कौन सा step first है, कौन सा second है, कौन सा third है. So this is all what is required of you to know about coagulation of blood. I'll see you in the next lecture.